Revealed, US and allied officials harboured doubts for years over the management and direction of the Afghanistan war. Transcripts of the interviews have been published by the Washington Post after a 3-year legal battle to make 2,000 pages of documents public. Joining me now is filmmaker and commentator and former journalist and war correspondent Michael Ware. Quite an introduction as always, Michael. You've done so much, but what are your thoughts on this story from the Washington Post?
Well, obviously this is a tough story, Peter. I mean, from day one, the war in Afghanistan has been like a Greek tragedy. It's the war we had to have after 9/11, but it's the war we were never going to win, and it seems like we can never get out of. Now, what the Washington Post has done is they've gained access to these thousands of pages of interviews with American commanders, American diplomats, Afghan officials and Afghan commanders, all of whom have revealed that even as they've been waging this war that's still not over, they've known that it's not winnable. This is the unwinnable war. And of course, officially, administration after administration, from the George W. Bush administration to the administration of Barack Obama to even now under President Trump, the officials have been lying. They haven't been able to tell us that we're losing, and in fact, we're losing worse now than we were any time in the history of this war. Now, does that come as a surprise to any of us who were there on the ground? No. Almost from the beginning, you could see there was no way for us to win this war. And if you know any of these people, any of these 400-odd people who've been interviewed, from generals to ambassadors, and I do, they knew this at the time. But this was their duty. They had to fight this war regardless. And now we're seeing that in the end, the public's been lied to all these years.
Do you know what, Michael? When I was reading this article, and folks, you should read it if you do get a chance on the Washington Post, but what was screaming to me was Vietnam. It was Vietnam all over again.
Yeah, well, there have been a lot of comparisons drawn between the Vietnam War and the war in Afghanistan. And yeah, there's a lot of similarities and there are a lot of differences. The problem is, this is a war we're just stuck with. Let's not forget, September 11 started in Afghanistan. That's where Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda planned, plotted, trained for the attacks in New York and in Washington, D.C. The Taliban government there was shielding Al-Qaeda and refused to give them up. We of the West had no choice but to go back in there and to take down Al-Qaeda and to remove that Taliban government. The problem has been filling that space in since. And there is no answer for that problem. There's certainly nothing that's clear and present. So this is one of the most painful legacies of September 11. And I've got to tell you, Peter, this war is still not going away anytime soon.
Just onto some other developments, Michael, this morning. These articles of impeachment, the process continues, or it becomes more and more formalised. What are your thoughts on these two articles that have been delivered today, and your thoughts on that?
Well, it's extraordinary what's happening, isn't it, right now? It doesn't matter what side of the political divide you fall upon. This is American history, literally unfolding before our eyes. Each and every day here on national television with live televised hearings. We are about to see the third president in the history of the United States be impeached by Congress. The House of Representatives, controlled by the Democrats, has come up with two grounds of impeachment. One is abuse of power, claiming that President Trump used America's national security authority, jeopardized America's national security to gain personal political advantage in the upcoming election next year. The other ground of impeachment is obstruction, There have been dozens and dozens of subpoenas issued, either for documents or for key members of the administration to give evidence and answer and explain these actions. But the Trump White House has absolutely stonewalled on all of that. So they're the two grounds going forward. And we know that the president is going to be impeached, probably before Christmas. Will he be convicted in the Senate, which is the second part of this process? Almost certainly not. But so what we do know is that President Trump almost certainly will be going into next year's election as the third leader of the United States ever to be impeached. Pete?
Yeah, do you think that'll matter, Michael? I mean, to his supporters out there, to his supporters and his base, the needle doesn't seem to move that much. So it's almost kind of dovetails into his whole argument that it's us against them. You know, they want me out, but I'm not going anywhere. So could this just energise his base as it heads into the election next year?
Well, that's a great question, Peter, because poll after poll after poll, and particularly the more complex and the more sophisticated polls, show that depending on which side of the line you're on, Democrat or Republican, a lot of issues from healthcare to education to jobs, you know, rank of varying importance. But the one question that both sides are set upon is impeachment, either for or against. Now, by and large, most of the polls have shown that broadly, nationally, a bare majority of Americans are in favour of impeachment. Now, will this change the election next year? It certainly isn't going to move President Trump's base. President Trump's base is rusted on and does not care that he is about to be impeached. Democrats certainly want him impeached, but they're going to vote against him anyway.
Yeah.
It's going to be these persuadables. It's going to be these swing votes in the middle. And it's going to be people, you know, who just take a look at what they see as the behaviour of this president as revealed by this impeachment process to decide whether that affects their vote or not. It's going to be one of the most intense elections in American history.
You are right about that. It is going to be a wild ride. Michael Ware, look forward to talking to you up until that and throughout that as well. Good to get your thoughts today.